Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name's Joe Kuzma, joined here by my good buddy, colleague, and pal, Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, how's it going, my friend?
Well, you know, it's those few days before all hell breaks loose in shopping land.
Black Friday. Hey, are you much of a Black Friday shopper, Brian?
Since the invention of online shopping, I don't go to stores anymore. I'm out. I'm completely, you know why? There are people there, and I don't like people, and I don't want to go anywhere near them.
My girlfriend's a lot like that, too. And I am to some point, but like she was like mind blown. Like she's picking up like an Aldi order or something. She's like, Aldi will like bring it out to your car now too. 'Cause she does like the Walmart Plus, and you know I've done Amazon for years and Best Buy and all these other things, online shopping. I try to avoid the crowds. Once upon a time when I was in college, I used to work at Best Buy on Black Fridays, and we actually had a lady that got trampled. And we stopped, kudos to like our loss prevention / security people that worked the front door. And we're talking, oh man, I'm dating myself now, but probably about 20 years ago, 15 to 20 years ago. And he stopped everyone from coming in. It was like, nope, nobody else came in. And we got a slow start. Instead of opening like at 6, like that line was waiting till 6:30. There were police involved. It's wild. So people joke about it, but I wanted to start off the show. I actually didn't want to start off by telling that story, but I wanted to wish everyone a hopefully happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving, especially with the biggest drinking day of the year being the day before Thanksgiving, because everyone's out during their travels and everything like that. Just be careful out there, folks. They do have things like Uber and Lyft that are available to you, or give somebody else a call. Be safe. Luckily, you know,
Please.
I've never had to deal with anything like that, but I know of others that have. And we want to be safe during these holidays. It does get crazy. It could be crazy Sunday. We've got the Steelers back on the screen, back at a Sunday 1:00 time frame for once, not a prime time game. 8-3 at the 4-7 Cincinnati Bengals. Another AFC North matchup after having none. We've got like 4 in a row here. Going to be a road game on a mini bye, but the Cincinnati Bengals also coming off a bye week. They did not play last week, so they're going to be rested, fresh, ready to go. Dangerous game, critical game for both teams because Cincinnati's sitting with 7 losses. A lot of people still think maybe they could squeak into the playoff picture, but they would have to win out. They've got a far worse schedule. I think the Steelers are somewhere about 9th or something in strength of schedule remaining. The Browns are like 3rd. Like they have like the worst schedule to finish out. And one of the teams, well, the Bears actually have the worst overall. But, you know, the Bengals, this is pretty big for them because if they drop one more loss, I mean, you're looking around at all the other divisions. You're looking at teams like, you know, could the Dolphins or somebody like that get back into? I know I got to look at all the records and do the actual comparison and the maths, and I did not do the maths, but we are focused here on the Steelers. Steelers at 8 wins. This is a big one. If they could get to 9, we know they're already coming back. This is going to be one of the teams with a lesser record that they're playing that's left on the schedule. So that's also why this is critical to pick up. Losing that Browns game it hurt because you pick this one up, you pick up the next one, then you're like, you're kind of coasting. But last season they went 5-1 in the division. We had said were probably lofty expectations for this year, but they at least need to go maybe 4-2 in order to win the division. With the Baltimore Ravens winning on Monday, right hot on their heels.
And how like he leaves Michigan. And I can't even say that. He leaves that place up north.
Yeah, I can't say it this week,
still ends up screwing us, right? Still ends up screwing us, but I can't beat his stupid brother. So annoying.
Yeah, I know. And so, like all the mistakes, the drop passes, like the Ravens go back and score 30 points again. And it's, you know, the Browns beat the Ravens too. So, you know, I'm going to give some credit where credit's due. The Browns defense, way better than what it looks like statistically or on paper. Ravens defense, the same, their rankings and ratings. Bengals defense, not so much. They are who they are. They're probably worse than what it even says statistically. So you look at the Bengals offensively, and they are led by Joe Burrow, who, if he was on any other, if you flip their record, Joe Burrow's probably in MVP talks. I had his numbers here. He's coasting along. I had sacks on here because Caleb Williams took 44. I was looking to see. So Burrow is tied with Lamar Jackson for 27 passes. And mind you, Jackson's played 12 games. So Burrow, the Ravens still haven't had their bye. Burrow's played one fewer game. He leads the league in pass attempts at 408. He's almost at the top of the league with 3,028 yards passing, but he's third. He's behind Geno Smith at 335 and Jackson with 3,053. Of course, having played one extra game will do that too. But Burrow's only been picked off 4 times this season. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't get sacked very frequently, 26 times. Now, pressure could be put on him. The Bengals' offensive line isn't very good to begin with. They're okay, but Trent Brown even went down, and we could even argue if Trent Brown going down really hurt them, but it's a starter that's lost. And I look at the Bengals, I look at their offense, I look at the Steelers' defense. I said, this is a game where the Steelers' defense, you've got to be able to limit Joe Burrow. You got to be able to limit Jamar Chase. You got to be able to limit guys like T. Higgins because they're going to throw the football all over the field. They're not a big running or rushing football team, but he will check it down to guys like Chase Brown. They lost Zach Moss for the year, traded for Khalil Herbert. He's, kind of middling there, not doing a lot since that trade. So there is a real threat here with the Bengals offense where the Steelers defense can't lay an egg in Cincinnati.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct. There's no give. Right. This is a game that they absolutely need to win. And then they need to win next week against the Browns. But it's not a trap game because Bengals have a tremendous offense. Right. And there is a risk here of not, if they're not playing up to snuff. I don't know what Alex's situation is, Alex Highsmith. I don't know whether he's gotten back to full participation or not. I'm sure you'll let me know here momentarily.
Tomlin was saying we'll see where he is. He didn't really give it. We don't have an injury report yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
He needs, they need pressure. If they can get to Burrow, if they can make him uncomfortable, that's how they can beat the Bengals. If the pressure is limited, if the Bengals do a good job and somehow manage to stuff us up, and we insist on only rushing 4 and we're not getting home, he's going to pick them apart, regardless of how good Joey Porter Jr. is and regardless of how good the secondary has been. He'll pick them apart. There's no question about it. You got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in the same receiving core. They will get open if they are given enough time to do so. So it's going to be really critical that all parties play, cohesively. That the rush gets there. They've got to be good on their rush lanes because Burrow will burn them for get out and run if the lanes are open for him to do so. It's a tough game for them. They haven't played tremendous against the Bengals over the last couple years. So they need to play very well in this game. And I think they can. The biggest difference, I think, between this team and the years past sits on the offensive side of the ball. This is a game where Russell Wilson really needs to bounce back. They need to be able to put up points. They need to figure out their problems in the red zone, and they need to be consistent. If they turn the ball over, if they make mistakes, they're going to drop this game. I don't think they should, but they are definitely at risk of doing so.
Yeah, there's definitely a risk there. We know the Bengals, they came back. That was the Chargers the week before that, before the bye. Same difference. And the Chargers held on there, but they were up 21 and all of a sudden in fourth quarter and the game's tied. And you're just like, holy cow, like Burrow he's been on fire. I have a lot of respect for him. It's kind of funny. My fantasy team, both Joe Burrow and Baker Mayfield, it was like they were so underdrafted. And those are 2 to 3 top quarterbacks with Lamar Jackson in the whole National Football League right now, right? You can't. Burrow's a cool customer. I was telling you about a gentleman that I met and we were talking, and another guy jumped in just we were off air here just this morning, and he said Burrow's inconsistent. I don't think Burrow's inconsistent. Burrow is, if anything, way too consistent. He's had 3-4 games here. Let's see, 5 games with at least 3 touchdown passes, 3 or more touchdown passes, 5 games this season of the 11 that they've played. And then he's had 4 games with 300 or more passing yards against the Steelers defense that, they're ranked halfway decent here. I should get into some of the numbers, right? 47 is the over-under for the game. The Bengals are -2.5, which I thought the Steelers actually opened as a favorite here. So I'm like, giving the Steelers points in this one. That's about your standard fare for a home game, and they're looking at this purely offensive numbers, right? I think Jamar Chase is leading the league with 1,056 receiving yards. He has 12 touchdowns on 73 catches for the year. He's an absolute beast. Higgins' numbers aren't up there because Higgins has had a hamstring issue. And he came in, quite frankly, he was doing the franchise tag thing. He was sitting and pouting and wanted his contract, and came from camp a little late, had a slow start, then got hurt, has been in and out of the lineup, came back in their last game. He's had a time to just sit and kind of heal. And he should have scored more against the Chargers, too. He dropped like a very easy touchdown pass. They also have Mike Gesicki and the other receiver, Iosivas. His name isn't spelled like that, right? Iosivas, but Andre. He is basically the new Tyler Boyd there, and he could make a little bit of an impact here or there. He's not too bad, but he's a younger player and out of Princeton of all places, right? And it's like, where do you dig up some players? I mean, I've always contended, Brian, if you're in the National Football League, or you're supposed to be, teams that are looking to win, they're going to add these players. Whatever you could do to help you win. I get in arguments sometimes with people online. You see like DJ Humphries signed with the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, why didn't the Steelers do that? And it's like, well, this guy's coming off a pretty major injury, and it's real late in the year, and he signed for something like $2 million with another $2 million incentives and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like 31 other teams don't always just get this wrong. Sometimes they do. Right? TJ Watt sliding to 30th overall, 28th overall pick in the same draft with Myles Garrett. And there's things like that happen, right? So, but this is a dangerous offense. It's one that you look at the offensive line, Ted Karras in the middle. You got Alex Kappa, Cordell Volson. That's a guy that could be beat on the interior. Orlando Brown and Amarius Mims, the rookie, who wasn't playing, and then he's in there for like Trent Brown. They have Cody Ford as a utility guy, as kind of the backup in the swing tackle there. So they've got some guys that could block along the line, but more or less their threats come from that passing game entirely, because Chase Brown, I don't think, was meant to be the guy there, but he ended up being that because of the injury to Zach Moss.
They need to find a way to make teams pay for putting 2 to 3 bodies on TJ every play, right? They've got to find a way to take advantage of that and assert pressure, whether that is sending an extra guy, whatever it may be. This could be a good game for Patrick Queen to do some blitzing, maybe Peyton Wilson, maybe bring up Beanie Bishop or somebody in the slot but they've got to do something, right? They can't allow people to continue to take TJ out of the game. And if they're going to, Nick or Alex have to make them pay, or Cam and Larry and Keanu. Somebody has to pick up the slack. And that's going to happen against this offensive line, which is not the greatest offensive line in the world, and hasn't been for many years. And, they need to take advantage of this. As I can't emphasize this enough. If they can't get to Joe Burrow, if they can't make him move, if they can't make him hurry, he will eat them alive.
Yeah, it could turn into a shootout situation, which, you don't necessarily want or need that. The Steelers need to get back into the business of scoring points in games. We know they can, but against AFC North opponents, just 19 against the Browns in the snowstorm, and then 18 against the Bengals. But 28 against the Commanders, 26 against the Giants, 37 against the Jets, and 32 against the Raiders. They had a pretty good streak going here, and that even predates Russell Wilson as a starter.
Yeah. And this is not a typical AFC North defense, right? This isn't the Browns defense. This isn't the Bengals defense, or it is the Bengals defense. By the way, just in case I misstepped that, it is the Bengals defense. It's not the Browns, it's not the Ravens, and it's not the Steelers defense, right? It's not a stout bunch. Yeah, they got Hendrickson, who's or was anyway leading the league in sacks.
Yes.
And they can apply some pressure, but they absolutely can be had, right? So this is a game where the offense needs to get right and find a way to put points on the board, because they're going to need to. As even if the defense is solid, the Bengals are going to score points.
Yeah, they will score points, and they've scored over 30 points in 5 of these games this season. 33 on the Commanders, 34 and 38 on the Ravens, 34 on the Panthers, and 41 on the Raiders, where they've also given it up. They've given up in the overtime loss to the Ravens. They gave up 41 and then another 35 in the other game that they played. They've given up just as many points in 5 games, with 34 to the Chargers, and then 37 to the Eagles and 38 to the Commanders. So for this could be a shootout. I think that 47 over under is right
very at risk.
Yeah,
yes, it's very at risk.
And talking in special teams, I was looking for images to use, right? And every single thing I pull up, because the last game, it's amazing how much has changed, right? I was going to pull up Boswell. There's him shaking hands with Presley Harvin, who's no longer here. There's also some images, because this was Mason Rudolph versus Jake Browning the last time these two teams met. There's so much that's changed. You see Joe Mixon getting tackled, and there's just a lot that's different between the two teams. But I think the Steelers have improved vastly since then, versus obviously having Burrow back is a big factor for the Bengals. But defensively, I don't have faith in the Bengals defense, so to speak. They're very matchup driven. They've got some guys that you're familiar with. Like you said, Hendrickson, he's leading the league by 1 sack over Danielle Hunter. He has 11.5 right now for the full lead. Let's see, there's only 10 players or 4 players with 10 sacks or more. Myles Garrett and Nick Benito from the Denver Broncos both have 10 apiece also. So there's only 4 players so far with 10 or more sacks, and TJ Watt's sitting at 7.5. He needs to get on his horse here quickly. So, but there's been a lot of injuries in the Bengals secondary. They, of course, brought over Geno Stone. You remember him playing for the Bengals. I don't know that that's worked out necessarily. I think they're still kind of hurting from not having Jesse Bates and not bringing him. And they brought Von Bell back, who was paired with Jesse Bates, and then Jordan Battle will come in there too, who's kind of taking a back seat. That was a guy they drafted a couple years ago that hasn't been in there. Dax Hill was hurt. Still hurt. He's on injured reserve. DJ Turner's also hurt. So you have a 5th round rookie and Josh Newton playing on one side, and then you have Cam Taylor-Britt on the other. Cam Taylor-Britt, I mean, he could be beat. He's still an NFL player, right? And then of course Mike Hilton, who we're all familiar with, playing in the nickel, gonna have to.
Never heard of that guy.
Never heard of that guy. Yeah, Bob.
Dead to me.
He's a Bob.
Dead to me.
But I think I'm more worried about them with the Steelers defense, or the Steelers offensive line woes. Sam Hubbard, his numbers don't reflect what he might be capable of doing. You have to worry about Hendrickson, and you have BJ Hill and Sheldon Rankins on the interior of that defensive line. It is a 4-3, but primarily the 2 linebackers being Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, who usually get beat worse because of the secondary. And if that front 4 can't apply pressure, or they're not using any kind of blitz schemes or anything like that, we'll put it this way. It's the same thing as like with the Browns. I'm not going to say desperate, but this is a team that needs a victory, and a loss isn't going to do them any good. So they can afford to play a little more loose, a little more aggressive, and allow things to just, whereas, if you play somebody like the Eagles, they might not be playing with house money. Maybe the Chiefs will, because they'll have such a big lead with their record that then they could be a little more reckless. But this is a Bengals team that needs to get it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they throw the entire house at the Steelers offense.
Absolutely. They're definitely, both of these teams are kind of in must-win scenarios. The Steelers really must win this game. They cannot go down 1-2 in the division, and hope that they're going to make it back up. They really need to pick this game up. But the Bengals, their season depends on winning this game, right?
Yes.
They can't, if they lose an 8th game, you pretty much can write them off. It's just unlikely that they're going to make the playoffs. It's unlikely they're going to make any kind of headway into what needs to get done. because they're probably not going to play clean the rest of the year either, right? My guess is they can afford to lose one game the rest of the year. And so every game sort of becomes a must win, right? Because you don't know which and where that's going to happen. It's hard to play perfect for, the rest of the season. I think that on top of that, it's just the same thing that happens in every AFC North battle. The Steelers have owned the division, and historically, not recently, but historically, the Steelers have owned this division and pretty much owned everybody in it. Historically, we don't have losing records against any of these teams, and every time we come to town, they want to win that game, right? It's a big game. It matters a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely.
And they all hate us. So, it's all good.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's like, the Steelers can be that team Super Bowl, as we saw, obviously, with the Cleveland Browns. The Cincinnati Bengals, however, when you're looking at the matchups, they're 1-4 at home. They've been terrible in front of their crowd, and are expected. This is another game that's expected to be a little frigid, a little cold, maybe in the 20s. I'm not too excited about sitting in cold weather again, Brian, anytime soon. I'm spoiled to this day, up to date, but just a little bit of the tail of the tape here too. Steelers 14th in points scored. So they've been climbing since Russell started. Points allowed, they're 4th, still at 16.9. Bengals are 6th in the league. Points scored at 27, 26.9, near the bottom, 28th ranked defensively. Their takeaways are in the middle of the pack. They are a +1 currently. And passing wise, they are the top passing offense in the National Football League, believe it or not, by yardage at an average of 262. You would think that number would be a little higher. Maybe passing is down a little bit. There has been some talk about that, though, that a lot of the teams, even the Steelers, more run focused, teams that run the ball more than passing. I think the Eagles are in that category too with Saquon. And it's the teams with mostly these running backs too that have changed places. Derrick Henry, and then the Detroit Lions, obviously, being another one of those teams. So the Bengals are a little on the flip side. They're not running the ball very much or very well. 27th in the league, averaging 91 per game, where the Steelers on offense average 135. That's good for 8th in the National Football League. But passing, they're at 192, which is 26th. On the defensive side, pass and rush, the Steelers are 17th and 4th against the run. Bengals are 23rd against the pass and 21st against the run. They're trending towards the bottom of the league and may have had a game or two against lesser opponents that they just didn't get totally smoked, where those numbers would be even worse. So that's why I was saying, you can look at this and say what you will. And for our folks that are going to watch this on the television box, I'm going to pull that up real quick here too. The red is the Steelers-Bengals game. That's the primary game at 1 o'clock. CBS, where just about the entire country is getting this, unless there's another team.
What's
local
green?
Or regional. You ask me this all the time, and I don't always have that up. But let me find that answer for you.
Well, because
it's
got to be like up there.
It's got to be like Tennessee or somebody. Hold on, I'll find it. I got to find the word.
Because I need to know why that little teeny tiny part of Louisiana is getting green.
You would need to know that.
I need to know.
My guess here was correct. Tennessee Titans at the Washington Commanders is the game in the green, and if you must know,
that makes no sense to me then.
Yeah, it doesn't. Maybe there's a strong presence of Commanders fans. Maybe there's a military base or so. I don't know. I have no idea.
Very strange.
It is. It. I put it up one more time. I mean, and I'm sorry if you're not watching this on YouTube, but if you basically took the Pacific Northwest and cut down from Eugene, Oregon, across parts of Nevada, all the way down into Arizona, because the West Coast has got the Chargers and Falcons game. And then, I mean, it's sprinkled throughout the New England states. They've got the Colts and Patriots, and that's, in Indianapolis and parts of Illinois and Atlanta area. You're getting that in Georgia, but like Florida, you've got that little cutout where Raleigh, North Carolina is too, that's getting the Steelers game. But practically everything else except for this little sliver. I got to see if that's like Shreveport or something like that. No, Shreveport's to the north. I'm not even sure what that area is. It's not New Orleans. It's not Baton Rouge. It's not Shreveport. I don't know, Brian. But thank you for, this is our This is our analysis for the game is why the hell are these guys not getting our game, damn it?
That's right.
It does seem a little random. I don't know. Maybe there's only so many markets that are permitted to carry it, and some TV executive had to throw a dart at the map. That might be it.
I think that whoever owns the TV stations in that region happens to be a fan of one of those two teams.
That could be very likely. That is pretty wild. I love looking at the maps, though, because it is my curiosity sometimes in like the games that are available. The CBS late window, they have the doubleheader this week. There's only one game available. Everyone is getting this nationally, and it's because of Thanksgiving. There's 3 games on Thanksgiving and a Black Friday game, so there's not as many games available this weekend. There's like 5 on the Fox 1 o'clock window. There's 4 in the CBS 1 o'clock window. CBS late window is Eagles-Ravens. That's the only game that anybody's going to get.
And it's the only one that if they're going to beat us when we're in Philly, they damn well better beat the Ravens.
Yeah, and they got to go on the road and play Baltimore. Since I'm already kind of off topic, we'll jump back to the game. There isn't any injury reports yet, but I caught something on XM radio on the NFL channel, and it was last night. Dean Blandino was a guest, and I think it was Bill Lekis or somebody. I don't remember the host, but Dean was on, and Dean was specifically asked about the Steelers and Browns game. And he was asked about the Jameis Winston intentional
grounding.
Yes, because this happened on Thursday night. It's a little not fresh in our memory, but we've had some people jump in the comments over at YouTube and some other places. And I said, okay, all the criteria was there for intentional grounding. The illegal touch by the offensive lineman, like you would think they'd be able to penalize both of these. So there's like this judgment area. You can't judge whether or not Jameis Winston's trying to throw to somebody else. It's where the ball ends up. All the criteria is it doesn't make the offensive line. He doesn't get outside of the tackle box. And what they were trying to say, he was already in a throwing motion when hit by a defensive player, which I think you're watching this in real time and you're trying to get the intent of the player. Oh, well, he was already throwing. He wasn't just trying to throw it away and avoid a sack. I don't think it matters. All the other criteria is there. He's not at the tackle box. It doesn't hit the line of scrimmage. Well, what was asked of Dean Blandino here, and he doesn't come straight out and say that there's a mistake. He's not going to say that. He's still deeply rooted in the officiating operations and stuff like that. What he says is that because they were asking if there's a loophole. Because there's a more severe penalty, obviously, for the intentional grounding. It's going to be a loss of down, and it's going to be 10 yards from the throw. So it's that's going to put them in a much deeper hole on 4th down and probably changes the entire outcome of the game. Now, we've said the Steelers have plenty of other opportunities to get their business in order and win that game, but this is a turning point, right? Turning point being Tomlin accepts the other penalty, that's the illegal touching for offensive linemen. And the question was asked, well, did that negate intentional grounding? Because that would be a loophole to the entire intentional grounding call, which is, let's face it, the fouls exist in the rule book so you can't cheat. And if you could just throw it to a lineman, that would be cheating. Every lineman would just touch the ball then and let it touch the ground, and it's a lesser penalty than intentional grounding. Well, Dean says no. They could have called both penalties. So it kind of, he hinted, but didn't come straight out and say that they should have called both of those. And that's the best I could say it, because he's going to be politically correct as to not bury his fellow officials, people he probably, has a cup of coffee with or has dinner or meals, since Christmas cards too. So I understand that. We don't necessarily bury Steelers players here. Anybody else on any other team we don't care about.
And well, to stick with the ref thing, just to prove my point that they stink no matter what division, no matter what league, no matter what they're in. They're just making crap up in the Indiana game. They're just making up penalties that didn't even exist. They're just like they're inventing stuff. Like, it's awful.
Different level.
They all stink.
Different level, but still, Big Ten referees are probably the next level up. Maybe ACC. You throw ACC, SEC, Big Ten, those three, the guys who work those. Any sport at that level of college, you're going to be probably the next up to the pros. But in the NFL, it's not like you got NFL guys going backwards and doing both.
They're all crap.
Yeah, that's what. So it's slimmer pickings for that pool of referees. You got Sean Hockley drawing this game, Brian. I know a favorite of yours. Brian, where'd you go, man?
I got to warm the GIF up, man, because it's going to be getting used a lot, I think.
Yeah, and I know. Take a look. Follow Dale Lawley, because Dale Lawley over on the X, formerly Twitter, he's one of the official Steelers.com people. He'll usually tweet out the averages for the penalties. He digs into that now, and it's interesting, the tendencies. But absolutely, I'm trying to think who even had the game with the Steelers and Browns. But like we said, no defensive pass interference calls, no offensive holding the entire game. I don't think you'll ever see that again. I think it's just the human element of these guys couldn't see either when the snow's really coming down and they're cold and your eyes are like half shut and everything else. They got to deal with it too. They're human, but in real time with everything. So, coulda, woulda, shoulda. They should have taken care of business with that, with the Cleveland Browns. They got to take care of business here with the Cincinnati Bengals. Cannot let this game go. I think some keys to the game. We really haven't talked about the Steelers. We talked about the Bengals defense, but how do you attack them with the Steelers offense? Well, hopefully Mike Williams can get on a moving train here and start to play a little bit more on the field. Yeah. And even Tomlin saying that. But Calvin Austin has emerged here too. He's done more than dare I say Deontay Johnson had done in the last few seasons, particularly scoring and just being somebody that could at least be an extra threat on the field. But let's see where Austin's at. He's second to George Pickens. Actually, him and Freiermuth, both with 354 yards. I did not realize that, and 3 touchdowns. We said Freiermuth could be the wide receiver too in this offense at some point. And of course, when you've got Najee Harris with 749 yards, Jalen Warren with 303 on the season, Arthur Smith's trying to pound the ball and run the ball some more. I think the Steelers got to get away from, aside from the one big run from Justin Fields, what did he do against the Ravens or the Browns? You're trying to get cute. You're trying to outsmart and find matchups and weaknesses against division opponents. I don't think this is it. I think you might see less of Justin Fields here. That third down play, Brian, was still, Tomlin said there wasn't necessarily an outlet pass or something like that, another option. And I think some of that was player dependent. He said they got the matchup they wanted. You said that's hooey. I agree. I could see it from both sides.
Yeah, I believe it. It's complete crap. I'm sorry. And if that is the only outlet that they had for that play, if that is the only, then that's a bad play, right? All plays have some other release, because if the first option is taken away, what do? Just go, oh, I'm sorry, this play didn't work. You figured it out. We're sad. We'll just sit down.
Yeah.
Right? No, I don't buy that for a second. I get it. Tomlin's going to protect the player. He's going to protect the coach. Mm-hmm. I think it was a bad mistake. Now, that being said, I think whether or not we see Justin Fields will depend on how the offense performs, right? If the offense is clicking and they're making and they're scoring from within the red zone and they're picking up third downs and they're doing things, I don't think we see Justin Fields at all. If, on the other hand, they stay in that stagnant, not able to convert state, then we're going to see him, because they got to do something as a means to try and shake things up and get themselves over the hump and into the end zone. We'll see. I don't care which. I'd prefer we stick with one quarterback.
Yeah.
And not have this jumping around thing, and that quarterback is not making bad decisions and not holding the ball too long and not able to run for a yard and is able to score touchdowns.
Well, I think that that's the biggest threat here, I think, is Trey Hendrickson. You're still going to have, Hill and Rankins and Hubbard. They'll apply pressure here or there. It's going to be whatever fifth guy that the Bengals, like Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator, ends up sending. If he sends Hilton, Hilton could be toast. I think Freiermuth on Hilton could be big. And we saw that last year. We saw Freiermuth as soon as Canada got canned. Freiermuth had his biggest game ever. Flash will not let that go, and I don't blame him. And you could see that same thing happening again. And like I said, you got a 5th-round rookie playing on the other side. So Williams might get more involved. Austin might get more involved. And it's not as though Pickens can't beat on Britt Taylor either. So I think that secondary, you're just going to have to look. You're going to have to keep an eye on Stone and Bell. I think Wilson is more than capable of doing that, and I think they'll be able to run the football. I think they'll do effective enough, but they're going to have to establish the run in this game. Najee, Jalen Warren, Again, like Najee has been the bell cow. I don't know that Warren is. I would still wonder if he's 100%, but that's the guy you kind of want in on third downs because
Yep.
he could pass block, or you got to worry about him because he's the more speedy guy or the guy that leaks out in the pass game as a check down option. I want to see more of that. I'm not, again, you and I, we don't like losing division games. We don't like losing in Cleveland Browns, but we understood. And I think it was a little more palatable given all of the circumstances surrounding that, okay, Steelers drop a game here. This is one. Take care of the Bengals game. You're going to play them again at the very end of the season. They may already be a defeated team and not all the way with it. And depending on how records and stuff is in the standings, that game might not mean anything for the Steelers. So you're not counting on that last game with the Cincinnati Bengals when they have their rematch later in the season. The Ravens game is going to be hell. The other Browns game is going to be back in Pittsburgh where they know they already got you the first time. So they have to take care. They have to take care of a few more of these AFC North games. They're 1-1. The Ravens are 2-2 in the division. I think if the Steelers go 4-2, I think they're going to be good to go, and they have the head-to-head against the Ravens. Provided there was, I'm not sure what the second tiebreaker is in that. It might be points scored or something like that, which is very low. So you still got to worry about that next one there, but you can't drop in very many more games. We know the Ravens have a very similar tough schedule. They have to play a Saturday game coming up too. They have to play on Christmas Day too. So it's gonna be a slugfest, at least in that competitive environment there, Brian, and the way they did the schedule. They may have not done the Steelers any favors, but at least the next competitive team within the division right now being the Ravens, they made it so it's at least a little more balanced, that the Ravens just don't have like a cakewalk and then they're getting all this breather. Although they did get an extra day following post Steelers to play on Monday night, which I think is complete horse shit. So I learned.
This is a game. If they want the division, they have to win this game, right? If they lose this game, I think you start talking about how do they get into the playoffs as a wild card. It's unlikely, I think, that they can win the division if they lose this game. They need to win this game if they want their division hopes to stay alive.
Yep. I learned one more thing I will tell you about the officiating before we sign off. A little shorter show. I was never aware of this with instant replay. So this seems very unlikely for the NFL, and I know it's dictated by like CBS, NBC, whoever's broadcasting the game. You don't have the same amount of cameras at this Sunday 1:00 game. Maybe they only have so much equipment to go around. I don't know what it is. So replay does not have the same advantages as it does with a primetime game. NBC's sending however many. They said they could have up to 50 cameras like for a Sunday night or Monday night football game, versus if CBS is there for like a 1:00 like this Sunday, they may only have 20 cameras. So you may only have like 2 or 3 camera angles. I never knew that. And they came up again. They were talking about whether this could be more standardized. They talked about, Blandino came up with the conversation. We've had this many times about the boundary cameras, having something that's fixed like tennis or baseball with the foul poles or something like that. So interesting conversations there. I wanted to pass that along to all the folks, but we weren't the only ones crying spilled milk about the Winston intentional grounding. That one just went out on national radio and was pretty much the lead question from the, it's the first game of for that week too, for last week. So of course it's going to be the lead, but Bengals got to hope for Steelers offense, play mistake free, and just try and limit Burrow and try and harass him a little bit. I think the Steelers defense is capable though, like they have with these other bigger offenses. They might keep them around the 20-ish mark, I think. And as long as they could do that, I think they can match firepower. By all means, come out with a victory, and then you get to go home and get your rematch with the Browns and get your revenge.
33-27.
33. I could never do.
I'm just making up numbers. I was trying to find a 30 number that would be really ridiculously difficult to get to.
Hopefully you don't ever end up in the block pool. You're going to end up with the bad square that's like first quarter has to end in a 2. So you either have a safety or you need like 4 field goals in the first quarter or something, which would be like almost impossible. As soon as the team scores a touchdown, you're like, it's out. But you got 2-point conversions and stuff that could still factor into that. But
33-27. That's my prediction.
All righty.
Bengals, or not Bengals, Steelers.
Well, enjoy your turkey day, man.
do the same, and everybody else do the same.
Yeah, I'd be curious. Jump into comments.
Don't go Black Friday shopping. Use Amazon. Stay home.
Well, you could use
and shop online.
You don't have to do just Amazon. You can do a lot of places you could order stuff and pick up.
Do any place you want. Just do it online.
Just don't get in any fights with people. Don't turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad from Jingle All the Way.
Exactly.
Who's the Turbo Man doll? The Turbo Man.
Yes.
So, all right, my friend. It's always good chatting with you. I know we're here earlier in the week because, we've got some holidays too. So, folks, hopefully you enjoy out there. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave a rating and review wherever you may be. Until next time, hopefully we're talking about a Steelers victory in the post game. So, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. And we've said it several times, but we always close off the show by encouraging everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.